makes more sense. It wasn't working. I don't know why, but there we go. It's been a while since I've done one of these. We're working on The Invisible Man at the moment, of course. Finished Around the World in 80 Days a while ago. I think that's just about to finish on Patreon and for YouTube members. And then we'll be going on to The Great Gatsby, which is already for sale in store, but that will be playing for Patreon and new members, of course. And then it will be The Invisible Man. And Gatsby's quite short. There's only like 9 chapters in that. They're very long chapters, but there's only 9, so we've got to get this one finished. So today is cleaning up the recording of Chapter 4, which will take a little bit of time and will not be amazingly exciting. So feel free to write in with any questions you might have. We have the old chat. Whoops. No, that's not working. Maybe it will. Alright, this is going to look kind of shoddy, but over here, you can see we can turn chat on and off, right? So we can see if you folks decide to chime in with the work. But for the moment, let's just kick into it.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
How are those volume levels? Hopefully that's okay.
Chapter 4.
Clean that up.
Chapter 4. Mr. Cuss interviews the stranger.
Nice silence before the story starts.
The stranger.
It's so exciting editing, really.
I have told the circumstances of the stranger's arrival in Epping with a certain fullness of detail in...
Oh, hang on. Where was that? This software I'm using, this is not my favorite, but it's very good at this particular job, so...
Detail, in order... Fullness of detail, in order that the... of detail, in order... of detail, in order that the curious impression he created may be understood by the reader, but accepting two... by the reader, but understood by the reader, but accepting 2 odd incidents, the circumstances of his stay until the extraordinary day of the club festival may be passed over. The club festival may be passed over very cursorily.
So much of my job at this early part of editing is just getting rid of breaths and breaks and changing the timing of deliveries, removing reading errors. These are things the AI channels don't have to worry about, of course. They just have glitches and horrible things that they don't worry about.
Over very cursorily. There were a number of skirmishes with Mrs. Hall on matters...
Mattels.
There were a number of skirmishes. There were a number... There were a number of skirmishes with Mrs. Hall on matters of domestic discipline, but in every case, until late April, when the first signs of penury began, he overrode her by the easy expedient of an extra payment. Hall of an extra payment.
There's an odd thing that he does in this book. I'm sure it's just a thing of the time, but Mrs. Hall is also always referred to as Mrs. Hall, but Mr. Hall is just referred to as Hall, despite the fact that Mrs. Hall is actually the person who owns the pub. She's the, more powerful member, but he's the guy, so he's just Hall, and she's Mrs. Hall. It's a bit odd. Takes a bit of getting used to.
He overrode her by the easy expedient of an extra payment. Hall did not like him, and whenever he dared, he talked of the advisability of getting rid of him. But he showed his dislike chiefly by concealing it ostentatiously, and avoiding his visitor and avoiding his visitor as much as possible.
Oops. Wrong shortcut.
Wait till summer. His visitor as much as possible. Wait till possible. Wait till summer. Wait till summer. Wait till summer, said. Wait till summer, said Mrs. Hall sagely. When the artists said Mrs. Hall sagely. When the artists are beginning to come, then we'll see. He may be a bit overbearing, but Bill's secured punctual is Bill's secure. He may be a bit overbearing. He may be a bit. Then we'll see. He may be a bit overbearing, but Bill's settled punctual is Bill's settled punctual, whatever you'd like to say.
A very excellent and believable female voice there, I'm sure you'll agree.
Whatever you'd like to say. The stranger did not go to church, and indeed made no difference between Sunday and the irreligious days, even in costume. He worked, as Mrs. Hall thought, very days, even in costume. He worked even in costume. He worked, as Mrs. Hall thought, very fitfully. Some days, very fitfully. Some days, very fitfully. Some days he would come down early and be continuously busy. On others, he would rise late. Continuously busy. On others, he would rise late, pace his room. On others, he would rise late. On others, he would rise late, pace his room. On others, he would rise late, pace his room, fretting audibly for hours together, smoke, sleep in the armchair by the fire. Communicate by the fire. Communicate by the fire. Communication with the world beyond the village he had none. His temper had none. His temper...
Harrison MacArthur, hello, how you doing? There we go, we'll turn the chat on so you can see yourself on screen there.
He had
Welcome,
none.
welcome.
His temper continued very uncertain. For the most part, very uncertain. For the most...
Welcome to the Thrill-A-Minute world of audio editing.
Very uncertain.
It's very
For the
exciting.
most part, his manner was that of a man suffering under an
Doing well.
almost
How am I doing? I'm doing quite well, thank you. Keeping busy, keeping busy. Is that chat thing working? It doesn't look like it is properly. No, it's not, is it? Wonder what it's doing. Well, we'll turn it off for the moment. Sorry. I'll fix that up next time. Sometimes it just decides not to work.
For the most part, his manner was that of a man suffering under an almost unendurable provocation.
It just doesn't link properly or something.
And once or twice. That's
a bit short, wasn't it?
Provocation. And once or twice.
Test. Yeah, I can see you on my my second screen, but you won't be showing up on the actual on the main screen for some reason. So I'll just have to read out all the comments for the thousands of viewers that will come later, I'm sure.
Provocation. And once or twice things were snapped, torn, crushed or broken in... Crushed or... Torn, crushed or...
Tech, sigh. When it works, it works. When it doesn't, yeah, exactly. When it doesn't, it's always at the worst possible time for it to not work. So, there you go.
Snapped, torn, crushed or broken in spasmodic gusts of violence. He seemed under a chronic... Silence. He seemed under a chronic irritation of the greatest intensity. Silence. He seemed under a chronic irritation of the greatest intensity. His habit of talking of the greatest intensity. His habit of intensity. His habit of talking to himself in a low voice grew steadily upon him, but though Mrs. Hall steadily upon him, but though Mrs. Hall steadily upon him, but though Mrs. Hall listened conscientiously, she could make neither head nor tail of what she heard.
We're doing The Invisible Man? Yes, indeed. This was selected by audience vote. Finished the big trilogy of the H.G. Wells stories. That'll be good. What program am I using? This one is SoundForge Audio Studio 12.6. It's quite old, but it's the best software I've found for this particular job, because it's so easy to select a section, hit Control T to mute it, remove all sound, and then just use this slider to fade out, so it's not just a hard cut.
She heard.
I haven't found a single other program that is as good at doing this job, so I use it for the master edits and then move on to better software later. I tend to use Premiere Pro when it comes time to lay on the sound effects and stuff, so you can still use it. I'm still going through both your version of War of the Worlds and Conan the Barbarian. Yes, Conan just finished this weekend, I think. Chapter 10 just went up. War of the Worlds is actually a personal favourite of mine. I like it. I think it came out pretty well. I must say that your audiobooks are very good. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. I put in a lot of work. As you will see, from the fact that we've been working for quite a while now already, and we've only edited the first 2 minutes of the file.
Tale of
I'm a little bit detail obsessed.
Tale of what she heard. He rarely went abroad in daylight, but at twilight he would go out muffled up invisibly, whether the weather up invisibly. He would go out muffled up invisibly, whether the weather were cold or not, and he chose the loneliest path paths and those most overshadowed by trees and banks. His goggling spectacles and ghastly bandaged face under the penthouse of his hat.
I'm currently turning my written works into audiobook using an AI narrator. Shame on me for not using my revoice. Yeah, not everyone has the the performance desire to use their voice and read their things. Voice actors can be expensive. As you can see, this is a long, laborious, torturous process, so it takes a long time to do it properly, and it's quite expensive. So, either you do it yourself, or you fork out a lot of money, or you use some horrible AI program, which I hate, but I also understand sometimes there's no option.
Face under the penthouse of his hat, and ghastly back of his hat. House of his hat, and
I think the term you're looking for is the voice for it. Not necessarily. For example, my friend Tim Williams, who was O'Brien in 1984, and he was the star in Dracula, and has been in so many of my other audiobooks. He doesn't like his voice. He thinks he has a bad voice for voice acting. I think he sounds great. I think it's just It's really more about performance than how you sound, I think. Yeah, anyway. Oh dear, I've struck a nerve. Forgive me for my use of the hated AI. I do hate AI. It is destroying my industry, but, it's not your fault. People are going to use it, I'm sure. You know what it always makes me think of is when I was a kid in school, we were always told in maths class, don't use a calculator because you're not going to have a calculator everywhere you go in life, are you? And look at us now. We've all got calculators in our pockets. Everyone's always got a calculator. So now here I am saying, don't use AI because it's horrible and I hate it. But maybe it's the same sort of thing. It could be in a few years, everyone's going to be using AI for everything, and I'll be the Luddite stuck in the past, Yeah. For what it's worth, I hate AI as well. Yeah, good on you. And they put them on our phones. Yeah, exactly. We've all got a calculator, and I mean, already AI is so ubiquitous. It is coming. I can't fight it as much as I want to. I can't. It is coming. To the point where already now, if you do a Google search for information, you have to tell it specifically not to give you an AI answer by typing in where's my local pizza joint minus AI. If you don't put minus AI on, then it will give you an AI response. So, yeah. AI is a fact of life, unfortunately. I would just like to keep it out of the arts. If I could do that, I'd be happy. Probably at least partly because, my channel is being absolutely crushed by AI at the moment because they can put out 10 books a day and I can't. Oh well, there you go. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I'll just keep doing what I do because I enjoy it and I like doing it well, and hopefully enough people will like my things that they'll still listen to my stuff. We'll see how it goes.
Under the penthouse of his...
Either that or I'll have to get a job in a factory somewhere like I used to. I've done every horrible job under the sun. Just terrible, terrible, terrible. But now I get to do this and I'm very fortunate.
Under the penthouse of his hat and ghastly bandaged pate and ghastly pate penthouse of his hat and ghastly bandaged face under the penthouse of his hat came with a disagreeable suddenness outals and ghastly spectacles and ghastly bandaged face under the penthouse of his hat came with a face under the bandaged and
I left myself a hard edit there. So there we go, this should be alright.
Spectacles and ghastly bandaged face under the penthouse of his hat came with a disagreeable...
I'll still listen to your stuff? Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I do.
Penthouse of his hat came with a disagreeable suddenness out of the darkness upon one or two home-going labourers. And Teddy Henfrey...
Fortunately, I do... I'm lucky enough to have garnered a bit of support, a bit of an audience, some of whom even actually pay every month a little bit of money just to support my art. Now that's amazing. That is really, really amazing.
Or two home-going labourers. And Teddy Henfrey...
That's too long for an and.
Two home-going labourers. And Teddy Henfrey, stumbling out of the Scarlet Coat one night at 9:30... was scared shamefully by the strangers.
May I ask, what made you want to do audiobooks? I've always loved them, of course. And I did a radio show a while ago where basically I volunteered at a community radio station, did a bunch of different shows for a while, and eventually they gave me my own show and said you can do whatever you want. And I decided to read audiobooks because I love radio plays and audiobooks, always have. And then after I was done with that, I enjoyed it so much I just bought a microphone and started making them at home. Largely to amuse my wife. Just do books she wanted to hear, Yeah. And fortunately, some other people thought it was good and listened in, so it has blossomed into the small but satisfying little channel/business that it is now. Yeah.
Past 9 was scared shameful.
But I mean, I used to listen to audiobooks and radio plays every night to go to sleep when I was a kid. So yeah, I've always loved this stuff.
Past 9 was scared shamefully by the stranger's skull-like head. He was walking hat in hand. Skull-like head. By the stranger's skull-like head. He was walking hat in hand. Hat in hand, lit by the sudden light. Hat in hand, lit by the sudden light of the opened-in door. Such children indoor.
I started turning my own stuff into audiobooks during the pandemic because I had nothing else better to do while we were all in lockdown. Yeah, a lot of good creative stuff started around then. It was one of the few good things that came out of that whole thing. I know quite a few people that started sort of home creative industries during that time, which is great. I think that's when my wife started seriously doing needlepoint and cross-stitch and stuff too, for which she recently won an award. So it's good. It's good.
Opened indoor. Such children as saw him at nightfall dreamt of bogies, and it seemed
Can I ask, since you're a writer, have you heard about the writing competitions of Steve Parker audiobooks? Because I'm not sure I promote them enough. I'm not actually very good at that sort of thing. But there's one that's just about to finish. It's the only one this year, unfortunately, and it's closing in 4 days. So you'd have to get a wriggle on, but yeah, it's up there. I really think I have to do better with promoting things like that. I'm terrible at it.
Full dreamt of bogies, and it seemed doubtful whether he disliked boys more than they disliked him, or the reverse. But there was certainly a vivid enough dislike on either side. Either side. It was inevitable that a person of so remarkable an appearance and bearing should form a frequent topic in such a village as Epping. Opinion was greatly divided about such a village as Epping. Opinion was greatly divided about Opinion was greatly divided about his occupation. Mrs. Hall was sensitive on
yes, I remember I asked you that question the last time I watched your live stream. I doubt that you'll remember me. Well, I haven't actually done this for a really long time.
About his occupation. Mrs. Hall was sensitive on the point. When
Actually, I find that either no one interacts with me and I feel like it's too boring to show people what I do, or people do interact with me like you do now, and I find that everything takes me 4 or 5 times longer than it has to do the editing work because I'm so busy talking with folks. I think you were playing Red Dead Redemption 2. Oh, that was a really long time ago. Yeah, right. No, that was fun. That was fun. Yeah. Now I do all my game streaming over on the Steve Stuff Gaming channel rather than on the main audiobook channel. I try and keep that purely for the audiobook stuff. Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. We had some good times with the chat and all that sort of stuff, I think. It was good.
Was sensitive on the point. When questioned, she explained very carefully that he was an experimental...
You have to check that channel. Yeah, I posted a video uh, today on the community tab of Steve Parker Audiobooks, just showing one of the funny things that happened recently on a stream. But that has a link to Steve stuff, as does, I think. Let me just do a quick flick over here. Where are we? Steve Stuff Gaming is there. Steve Parker Audiobooks is here, and I think on the home tab down the bottom, there you go, that's got a link to my other two main channels, so you can find that there. There you go, lovely. And I think on the posts, yeah, there you go, so we've made a link. One of the one of our visitors who I used to play World of Warcraft with years ago decided to write a sea shanty while I was sailing around in Valheim, and we sang it, and that was a bit of fun. Yeah. And I'm such a dork, I made a video out of it and posted that. Yay! But yeah, no, that's live streams. I do that like most days, 5 days a week. Yeah.
Carefully that
fun.
he was an experimental investigator, going gingerly over investigator, going gingerly over the syllables as one who dreads pitfalls.
Alliance or Horde? Both. When I was playing with Meg, that particular player, I was Horde. At the moment, I'm Alliance, back in Classic, just playing casually with the wife. Not doing anything too serious.
Who dreads pitfalls. When asked what an experimental When asked as one who dreads pitfalls. When asked what an experimental investigator was, she would say with a touch of superiority that most educated people knew such things as that, and would thus explain that he discovered things. Discovered things. Explained that he discovered things. Explained that he discovered things. Her visitor had had an accident. Things. Her visitor had had an accident, she said, which temporarily discolored his face and hands. And being of a sensitive disposition, he discolored his face and hands. And being of a sensitive disposition, he was averse to any public notice of the fact.
I presume by your question that you're a WoW player as well?
Public notice of the fact. Out of her hearing, there was a view. Out of her notice of the fact. Out of her hearing, there was a view largely entertained that he was a criminal trying to escape from justice by wrapping himself up so as to conceal himself altogether from the eye of the police. This I
Sometimes, unfortunately, I don't have a professional studio to record in, so sometimes there's a vehicle going past outside or something like that that I just have to wait for. Wait for it to pass so that I can carry on. I am, although I'm a dirty, filthy casual who only plays when the mood takes me. Yeah, no, absolutely right. Absolutely right. I mean, what's the other option? To be completely obsessed and let it take over your life? No, no, no. Casual all the way. Casual all the way.
From the eye of the police. This idea sprang from the brain of Mr. Teddy Henfrey. No crime of any magnitude dating from the middle or end of February. No crime of any.
No, I used to be like quite obsessive. I would play absolutely every day
From the eye of the
for
police.
several hours at least,
This
and let it take over whole weekends, you know. But no, not now. Not now. That's what writing's for. Yeah, exactly. Let that be your obsession. Something you actually create. Something you make. Absolutely.
From the eye of the police. This eye of the police. This idea sprang from the brain of Mr. Teddy Henfrey. No crime of any magnitude. No brain of Mr. Teddy Henfrey. No crime of any magnitude dating from the middle or end of February was known to have occurred. Elaborated in the imagination of Mr. Gould have occurred. Elaborated in the imagination of Mr. Gould.
I've been working on the same story since I was 18 years old. I'll be 32 this September. There you go. I completely understand that. I have a notebook. Actually, I've got a couple just for writing ideas. And one of them is entirely dedicated to one word. One world, rather. I haven't even started the story. It's just a notebook full of ideas for characters, scenes, plots, that sort of thing. One day I'll start. We'll see how it goes. I'll probably be 80 by the time I write the first sentence.
Known to have occurred. Elaborated in the imagination of Mr. Gould, the probationary assistant in the nation. The probationary assistant Gould,
Oh no, I've left myself a bad edit here.
Probation.
Okay, fortunately we can start at the P.
The probation.
Right, no, this will be fine. This will be fine.
Gould, the probationary assistant in the national school. This theory in the national school. This theory took the form that the stranger was an anarchist in disguise. It's known to have occurred. Elaborated in the theory was known to have occurred. Elaborated in the imagination of Mr. Gould, the probationary assistant in the national school. This theory took the form that the stranger was an anarchist in disguise, preparing when
I started, I thought it would take 6 months. Short story then. Yeah. Dear heavens, what monster have I created? Yes. Well, you know, better to take as long as you need to and to, you know, be happy with the final result. I happen to know that there are programs I can use that would do much of this work that I'm doing automatically. It would do it by itself and not take very long at all. But I would far rather take the time and make sure I'm happy with every edit.
In disguise, preparing explosives, and he resolved to undertake such detective operations as his time permitted. As detective operations as his time permitted. These consisted of operations as his time permitted. These consisted for the most part in looking very hard at the stranger whenever they met, or in asking people who had never seen them.
My world is the unholy love child of Lord of the Rings, meets Saving Private Ryan, meets H.P. Lovecraft, meets C.S. Lewis, meets Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Fascinating. Fascinating. Could be interesting. Should always let your influences shine through. I see no problem with that at all.
Stranger whenever they met, or in asking people who had never seen them. Looking very hard at the stranger whenever they met, or in asking
That's just a little too long.
Hard at the stranger whenever they met, or in asking people who had never seen the stranger leading questions about him. But he detected questions about him. But he leading questions about him. But he detected nothing. Nothing.
I have the first book published already. Oh, cool. The Hunt for the Dragon King. Was that self-published or?
Questions about him, but he detected nothing. Another school of opinion followed Mr. Fearon's side, and either accepted the piebald view as some modification of it.
Self-published, cool.
Opinion followed Mr. Fearon's side, and either accepted the piebald view or some modification of it, as, for instance,
I have no problem with that either. Everything I've done has been self-published, basically. It's incredibly difficult to be noticed by big companies in the sea of content being pumped out every day nowadays. So, you know, we used to think being a self-starter was great, didn't we? But somewhere along the line, like being self-published got a bit of a stink about it. But I don't have a problem with that at all. Almost every successful creative I know started by putting their stuff out themselves. That's just how it goes, you know. I mean, biased, but I think it's pretty. Is that halfway through a statement there, or you just think it's pretty? That's all right. Oh, my alarm just went off. Pretty good, right? Yeah, cool. I may be biased, but I think my book is pretty. Yeah, good. I'm glad.
Of it, as, for instance, Silas Durgan, who was heard to assert that if he chooses to show himself at fairs, he'd make his fortune in no time. And being a bit of a theologian, no time. And
here you go. I'll show you a bit about what I mean about this software. If we hear at the end of this statement,
in no time,
that breath, using this slider, we can pull it back and back and back.
In no time.
So you just hear the time and not the breath afterwards. Now, I've never found any software that does that job better.
In no time. And being a bit of a theologian,
very handy.
No time. And being a bit of a theologian, compared the stranger to the man with the one talent. Yet another view explained the entire matter by regarding the stranger the one talent. Yet another view explained the entire matter by regarding the stranger as a harmless lunatic. That had the advantage of a harmless lunatic. A harmless lunatic. That had the harmless lunatic. That had the advantage of accounting for everything straight away. Between these main groups there were waverings. That had the advantage of accounting for everything straight away. Between these main groups there were waverers and compromisers. Sussex folks have few superstitions, and it was only after the events of early April that the thought of the supernatural was first whispered. Of the supernatural was first whispered in the village. Whispered in the village. Even then, it whispered in the village. Even then, it was only credited amongst the women folk. But whatever they thought of him, people in Epping on amongst the women folk. But whatever they thought amongst the women folk. But whatever they thought of him, people in Epping on the whole agreed in disliking him. His irritability, though it might have been disliking him. Disliking him. His irritability, though liking him. His irritability, though it might have been comprehensible to an urban brain worker, was an amazing thing to these quiet Sussex to these quiet amazing thing to these quiet Sussex amazing thing to these quiet Sussex villagers. The frantic gesticulations they surprise now and then. The frantic gesticulations thing to these quiet Sussex villagers. The frantic gesticulations they surprised now and then, the headlong pace after nightfall that swept him upon them round quiet corners, the inhuman blood them round quiet corners, the inhuman bludgeoning of quiet corners, the inhuman bludgeoning of all tentative advances of curiosity, the taste for twilight, advances of curiosity, the taste for twilight that the taste of advances of curiosity, the taste for twilight that led to the closing of doors, the pulling down of blinds, the extinction of candles and lamps. Who could agree with such lamps? Candles and lamps. Who could agree with such goings on? Goings on. Who could agree with such goings on?
Will you do any more of the Conan stories? Maybe. There's a lot of them. Depends. If people like the one that I've done, and it does fairly well, then yeah, definitely. Yeah, it all depends on the audience at this point. If something's popular with them, then I'll do more. If it's not, then I don't. Unfortunately, I've got to make some money, and that means making things that people want to listen to.
Candles and lamps. Who could agree with such goings on? They drew us up. Who could agree with such goings on? They drew aside as he passed down the village.
Sadness, exactly. Capitalism, right? It kind of gets in the way of artistic integrity and just making the things that you want to make for the sake of making them. But we all must bow before the almighty dollar, unfortunately. Oh, come on, we're not even going to make halfway.
With such goings on. They drew aside as he passed down the village, and when he had gone by, young humorists would up with the coat collars and down with hat brims, and go...
Oh yeah, I did enjoy it though. I don't get to do much of the sort of sword and sorcery type stuff. And while I don't really read that stuff anymore, I used to when I was younger. It was basically all I read was fantasy things. It was fun making an audiobook that was a little bit more out there than the stuff I generally make. That was fun. I liked trying to come up with sound effects for the magic and that sort of thing. It was good.
Collars and down with hat brims, and go pacing nervously after him in imitation of his occult bearing. His occult bearing.
I'm really enjoying your take on Conan. Oh, good. Thank you. That's good. Well, it's just finished. I think next week the full sort of the full audiobook, the full put together edited audiobook will come out. And then it's a lot of Around the World in 80 Days. That'll be going for most of the rest of the year, I think.
Occult bearing. There was a song popular at the time called The Bogeyman. Miss Statchell sang it. The Bogeyman. Miss Statchell sang it at the school. Bogeyman. Miss Statchell sang it at the schoolroom concert in aid of the church lamps. And thereafter, whenever one or two church lamps, and there
I shall look forward to the completed video. Yeah, me too. A lot of the audience tends to wait until the full novel version comes out, so I get a lot more feedback after that and learn whether they actually enjoyed it. And if they did, then I get to make more, which is cool.
The church lamps. And thereafter, whenever one or two of the villagers were gathered together, and thereafter, whenever one or and thereafter.
And there are a lot of them. We could keep making Conan for years, essentially. It's a bit like Sherlock Holmes. There's just lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of stories.
And thereafter, whenever one or two of the villagers were gathered together and the stranger appeared, a bar or so of the stranger appeared, a bar or so of this tune, more or less sharp or flat, was whistled in the midst of them. Also,
by Crom.
In the midst of them.
That's it.
Also, belated little children would call Bogeyman after him and make off tremendously elated. Call Bogey.
I like stories where I get to make up some more ridiculous voices. Weirdly, it's not really all that weird, but it's easier to come up with voices that are really out there than it is to, come up with a bunch of more realistic voices. So I always like the opportunity to be able to do that.
Little children would call Bogeyman. Children would call Bogeyman after him and make off tremendously elated. Cuss. And make off tremendously elated. Cuss, the general practitioner, was devoured by curiosity. The bandages excited.
I would love to hear your take on any scene from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, man, me too. It's it's a great hope that eventually, I'll get enough financial backing to be able to actually pay for some rights to do some more modern books, but we're just nowhere near that, unfortunately. I would need basically every follower that I have on YouTube to subscribe to Patreon for like $1 a month. If everyone did that, I could afford to buy rights and do some big funky books, but they don't. No one wants to hear those books from me enough to actually put some money down on it, so I can't afford to do that sort of thing. It would be great, though. I feel like you would have a good orc or goblin voice. Absolutely. I got to play an orc in a short film once, and that was lots of fun. They spent hours painting me green and putting fangs on and wrapping me in horrible fantasy armor and stuff. And I got to snuffle around and grunt and roar, and then get stabbed in the back by a tiny little elf girl, which was just terrible. But it was still fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, you get to do some cool stuff as an actor, man. I've done some pretty great fun things. I was in a Fallout movie once as a big bad guy that never got completed, unfortunately. I'm not sure that Orc movie got done either. I fired bazookas at helicopters. All sorts of cool stuff. All sorts of cool stuff. Being an actor is a fun job. For the fun bits. For the rest of it, it's just bloody hard work and freezing cold mornings and not sleeping and all that sort of stuff. But the fun bits are really fun.
By curiosity. The bandages excited his professional interest. The report of 1,001 bottles aroused his jealous regard.
Tell you, one of the few regrets that I have about my years as a like film, TV, stage type actor rather than the voice stuff that I'm doing now, is that I never got to do like fun wire work stuff, flying through the air, all that sort of thing. You know,
Jealous regard.
That would have been fun.
Jealous regard.
I would pity the poor team of people that had to keep me up in the air, but it would be fun. I'm a large fella. I'm a big heavy guy.
Caused his jealous regard. All through April and May, he coveted an opportunity of aroused his jealous regard. All through
That's right, a little too long, not too bad.
his jealous regard. All through April and
bloody knife ears. Yeah, exactly. Those elves, man. She was a tiny little thing, though, little slip of a girl.
Coveted an opportunity of talk.
A little elven dagger sneaking up behind me. Awful, horrible.
Coveted an opportunity of talking to the stranger, and at last, towards Whitsuntide, he could stand it no longer. Whitsuntide, he could stand it no longer, but hit upon the subscription list for a village nurse as an excuse. He was surprised.
I did get to do like a sci-fi version of a sorcerer in one short web series that was a lot of fun. I got to throw some magic around then. That was pretty good. That's good, creative, imaginative muscle building. It's good fun. I wonder if I can find that. What was that? What was that called? That was Fury Fingers was the channel, not Furty Fingers. Fury Fingers. There you go, that's them. Love Guns and Level Ups, that's the series. There you go. It was one of the episodes of that. Behind the scenes. No, it was that. Oh boy. Episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it was the last one. Let's have a look. Can I see it?
I think we just got...
Yeah, shush. Don't need talking. No, maybe it wasn't that one. Episode 5? Don't know, I can't see it. I'd have to go hunt it down. It was fun though. It was lots of fun. Got to throw around some cool stuff. Oh wow, I can't see it at all. No, it'll be in there somewhere. I can't remember. Anyway, I've got work to do. I can't be fooling around looking at old web series I was in.
He was
maybe another time.
Nurse as an excuse. He was surprised to find that Mr. Hall did not know his guest's name. He gave a name. Know his guest's name. He gave a name, said Mrs. Hall, an assertion which was He gave a name, said Mrs. Hall, an assertion which was quite unfounded. But I didn't rightly hear it. She thought it seemed rightly hear it. She thought it seemed so silly not to know the man's name. Cuss rapped at the parlour door and entered. There was a fairly audible imprecation from within. Pardon my intrusion. Pardon my intrusion, said Cuss, and then the door closed. Intrusion, said Cuss, and then the door closed and cut Mrs. Hall off from the rest of the conversation. She could hear the murmur of voices for the next 10 minutes. Then a cry of surprise. 10 minutes. Then a cry of surprise. Huh? A stirring of feet. Huh? A stirring of feet, a chair flung aside, a bark of laughter. A bark aside, a bark of laughter. Quick laughter. Quick steps to the door. Quick steps to the door, and Cuss appeared. Cuss appeared. Quick steps to the door, and Cuss appeared. Quick steps to the door, and Cuss appeared, his face white, his eyes staring over his shoulder. He left the door open behind him. Over his shoulder. He left the door open behind him, and without looking at her, strode across the hall and went down the steps. Strode across the hall. Strode across the hall. Strode across at her, strode across the hall and went down the steps, and she heard his feet hurrying along the road. He carried his hat. Along the road. He carried his hat in his hand. She stood behind. Hat in his hand. She stood behind the door, looking at the open door of the parlour. Then she heard the stranger. Open door of the parlour. In the door, looking at the open door of the parlour. Then she heard the stranger laughing quietly. Quietly. And then his footsteps came across the room. She could not see She could not see his face where she stood. The parlour door slammed. The room. She could not see his face. Came across the room. She could not see his face where she stood. The parlour door slammed, and the place was silent again. Cuss. And the place was silent again. Cuss went straight up the village to Bunting, the vicar. Am I mad? Am I Bunting, the vicar? Bunting, the vicar. Am I mad? Am I mad? Cuss began the vicar. Am I mad? Cuss began abruptly, and Cuss began abruptly. Am I mad? Cuss began abruptly as he entered the shabby little study.
Do I look like an insane person?
What's happened?
Person.
What's happened?
Insane person.
What's happened?
Like an insane person.
What's happened?
I have to get going. I'll leave you to it until next time. Yep. Great. Thanks for coming. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Maybe for a game stream rather than a incredibly boring editing stream.
Like an insane person.
What's happened? Said the vicar.
Person.
What's happened? Said the vicar, putting the ammonite. Putting the ammonite on the loose sheet. Putting the ammonite on the loose sheet. On the loose sheets of his forthcoming. Said the vicar. What's happened? Said the vicar. What's happened? Said the vicar, putting the ammonite on the loose sheets of his forthcoming sermon.
That chap.
Okay, here's a tip for those playing the home game.
Do I look like an insane person?
What's happened?
When I create a new character, I like to keep a little sample of their voice in a folder on my desktop. Invisible Man Working, character samples. There you go, and I keep it on Google Drive as well. That's why there's not many in this little folder. So that later on when you go, that bloody Teddy Henfrey, what did he sound like? What was his voice? When you're in the recording booth, you can go click on the file and go, he sounded like that. That's right.
Person.
What's happened? Said the vicar, putting the ammonite on the loose sheets of his forthcoming sermon.
That chap.
Forthcoming sermon.
That chap at the inn.
Sermon.
That chap at the inn.
Well?
That chap at the inn.
Well?
Give me something to drink. The inn.
Well?
Give me something to drink. Give me something to drink. At the inn.
Well?
Give me something to drink,
said Cuss, and
chap at the inn. Give me something to drink.
Save as to working character samples. Cuss. There we go. We'll upload that later.
That chap at the inn.
Said Cuss, and he sat down. When his nerves had been steadied by a glass of cheap sherry, the only drink the good vicar had available.
Just 1 second. I just want to see. There's the chat. And just go here. And you paste that. That is the address. Yeah, it should have worked. Oh, there you go. It started working. Eventually. Great. That's good. Oh well. We'll turn it off now and get back to work.
And he sat down. When his nerves had been steadied by a glass of cheap sherry, the only drink the good vicar had available, he told him of the interview he had just had.
Went in,
he gasped.
Went in,
he gasped.
Went in,
he gasped.
and began to demand a subscription for that nurse fund. Went in,
he gasped.
and began to demand a subscription for that nurse fund. He'd stuck his hands in his pockets as I came in, and he sat down lumpily in his chair, sniffed. I told him I'd heard he took an interest in scientific things. He said yes, sniffed again, kept on sniffing all the time, evidently recently caught an infernal cold. No wonder wrapped up like that. I developed the nurse idea, and all the while wrapped up like that. I developed the nurse idea and all the while kept my eyes open. Bottles, chemicals everywhere, balance, test tubes in stands, and the smell of evening primrose. Would he subscribe? Said he'd consider it. Asked him point blank, was he researching? Said he was. A long research? Got quite cross. A damnable long research, said he. A damnable research, said he. Cross.
A damnable long research,
said he, blowing the... Got quite cross.
A damnable long research,
said he, blowing the cork out, so to speak. Oh, said I, and out came the grievance. The man was just on the boil, and my question boiled him over. He'd been given a prescription, most valuable prescription. What for, he wouldn't say. Was it medical?
Damn you! Damn you! Damn you! What are you fishing after?
Say, was it medical?
Damn you! What are you fishing after?
I apologized, dignified.
You fishing after? Fishing after?
I apologized, dignified sniff and cough. He resumed. He'd read it. 5 ingredients. Put it down, turned his head. Draught of air from window, lifted the paper. Swish, rustle. He was working in a room with an open fireplace, he said. Saw a flicker. There was the prescription burning and lifting chimney wood. Rushed towards it just as it whisked up the chimney. So, just at that point, to illustrate his story, out came his arm. Well? Oh, well? No. Well? Came his arm. Well? Arm. Well? Came his arm. Well? No hand. Just an empty sleeve. Lord, I thought, that's a deformity. Came his arm. Well, no hand. Just an empty sleeve. Lord, I thought, that's a deformity. Got a cork arm, I suppose, and has taken it off. Then I thought there's something odd in that. What the devil keeps that sleeve up and open if there's nothing in it? There was nothing in it, I tell you. Nothing... 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 in it, I tell you. Nothing down it, right down to the joint. I could see right down it to the elbow, and there was a glimmer of light shining through a tear of the cloth. Good God, I said. Then he stopped, stared at me with those black goggles of his, and then at his sleeve. Well? Well? His, and then at his sleeve. At his sleeve. At his sleeve. Black goggles of his, and then at his sleeve. Well?
All right, we're going to have to call this stream here. It's just gone noon on my end of the world, which means lunchtime. And also I have to call up some offices and do some horrible bureaucracy and terrible busy work, and it's immensely boring. Even more boring than watching me edit sound. But you can see we've actually made some pretty good headway here, which is, yeah, I'm happy with that. As soon as we got onto Cobb's little monologue, of course, it got a lot easier. You don't have to delete all the breaths when the character is the one doing the breathing. That's absolutely fine. So we've gotten through this pretty well. You can see, though, I think the initial file was about 20 minutes, I think. Let's see, where do we get it? Where's the master? There we go. Yes. All right, that's fine. There you go, 1931, right? We've cut it down to, like, how long is it? 11 something. It's down to about 15 minutes. So we've cut a good chunk out of it, which is the idea of editing, to get as much as you can out. When I initially started, it was more like half of what I was recording would be just deleted, go to the cutting room floor. But now I've gotten a bit smoother at it, so you get to keep quite a bit more. So thank you very much for coming along to see this and whatnot, and hopefully it's all been good. I hope you found it interesting and entertaining. Let me know in the comments if you do like this sort of thing, and you know, we'll do some more of them in future. If not, no matter. Honestly, I edit faster without streaming. So yeah, it slows me down a little bit. Nonetheless, we'll see you next time. Maybe you want to come along to the gaming channel, Steve Stuff Gaming, or you can just stick on the main audiobook page here. The full Conan novel coming up next week, and then we start Around the World in 80 Days, read by the mighty and indomitable Tim Williams, who has an excellent voice, whatever he thinks about it. Okay, thanks a lot, folks. Have a great one. Catch you next time.